In the heart of the city, where the world never seems to pause, there exists a small, leafy park, a rare pocket of stillness. Each morning, as the sun begins its slow ascent, the park comes alive with the soft rustle of leaves, the distant bark of a dog, and the gentle hum of people starting their days. Amidst the buzz, there is an old wooden bench, weathered by years of sun and rain. On this bench, most mornings, sits an old man. He is a fixture of the park. His hair, the color of snow, is always neatly combed. His coat, though faded, is buttoned precisely, and his hands, strong yet gentle, rest quietly on the handle of a wooden cane. Most people pass him by without a second glance. Some nod politely, others simply walk on, lost in their own worlds. The old man never seems to mind. He watches the world unfold with eyes that have witnessed decades and a silence that speaks more than words ever could. One chilly morning, as people hurried through the park, a young man appeared, shoulders hunched, eyes downcast, burdened by worries too heavy for his years. He noticed the old man, sitting as usual, and on an impulse sat down beside him, leaving a respectful space between them. For a while, neither spoke. The symphony of city life filled the silence, the distant clang of a bicycle bell, the laughter of children chasing pigeons, the soft whisper of wind through the branches. Eventually, the young man let out a sigh, heavy with the weight of unspoken troubles. The old man turned to him, offering a gentle nod, an invitation, not a demand. The young man hesitated, then spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. He spoke of failure, exams he had not passed, jobs he hadn't gotten, dreams that now seemed so far away. He spoke of loneliness, of feeling invisible in a world moving too fast. The old man listened. Not once did he interrupt, nor did he rush the young man's words. He simply sat, present, his silence a space for the young man's pain to breathe. When the young man finished, he stared at the ground, embarrassed by his own vulnerability. For a long moment, the old man said nothing. Then, quietly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. He held it out with a trembling hand. The photo showed a young boy, perhaps 7 or 8, standing proudly beside a bicycle. The old man smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "That was me," he said, his voice soft but clear. "My father had saved for months to buy me that bicycle. I was determined to learn to ride it, but I fell again and again. I scraped my knees, bruised my elbows, and sometimes I wanted to give up. But each time I fell, my father would help me up. He never scolded me for falling. Instead, he told me that falling was simply proof that I was trying something new. Every time I got back on, I learned a little more, not just about riding, but about myself." He placed the photograph gently on the bench between them. "Life," he continued, "is much like learning to ride that bicycle. You will fall, you will fail, you will feel alone, but every fall is a lesson, every failure a teacher. The trick is not to avoid falling, but to get back up each time, a little stronger and a little wiser." The young man listened, the words settling over him like a warm blanket. He had expected advice, perhaps even a lecture. Instead, he found understanding. The old man's story, so simple yet so profound, echoed in his mind. It was not a solution, but a reminder. He was not alone in his struggles. The quiet man beside him had known pain, failure, and loneliness, just as he did. As the sun climbed higher, the park grew busier. The young man stood, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. He thanked the old man, who simply smiled and nodded, as if to say, "No thanks needed." The young man walked away, the old photograph still vivid in his mind, each step carrying a bit more hope. Days passed, and the young man returned to the park, seeking the old man's silent company. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they simply watched the world together. In those quiet moments, the young man learned the power of presence, the unspoken wisdom of just being there for someone, of listening without judgment, of sharing a story instead of a solution. He noticed things he had never seen before, the way sunlight dappled through the leaves, painting patterns on the path, the kindness of strangers, a mother helping her child tie his shoes, an elderly couple sharing a laugh, a jogger pausing to feed the birds. He learned that wisdom was not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it sat quietly on a park bench, tucked inside a faded photograph, or locked within a gentle smile. As seasons changed, so did the young man. He found the courage to try again, to apply for new jobs, to reach out to old friends. Each time he stumbled, he remembered the old man's words. Falling was proof of trying. He learned to forgive himself, to see failure not as an end, but as a step on the path forward. One crisp autumn morning, the young man arrived at the park to find the bench empty. Days passed, and the old man did not return. The young man felt a pang of loss, but also gratitude. For in the old man's absence, he realized something profound. The wisdom he had received was not bound to the bench or the man who sat upon it. It was alive within him, ready to be shared. He began to notice others who sat alone on benches, young and old, burdened by their own silent struggles. Sometimes he would sit beside them, offering not advice, but presence. He listened. He shared his own stories, not to solve problems, but to remind them that they were not alone. And so the cycle continued. The old man's wisdom lived on, passed from one heart to another, quietly, gently, in the way only true wisdom can be. For sometimes, the quietest people have the loudest impact. All it takes is one conversation on a park bench, a story, a photograph, a listening ear. In the end, it is not the words themselves, but the kindness behind them that can change a life forever.